3. Thank you, Kim, for getting the recording started there. So we're thinking about nurturing our well-being. It is such a vast topic. We could spend a month on it, actually. It would be really, really easy to tackle this theme from so many different angles. And of course, we've got 1 hour, so it's a real whistle-stop tour. And I really hope that it will give you food for thought, that we can then continue to have conversations beyond this 1 hour that we've got in the Facebook group, or just communicating by email. Contact me afterwards if you have any light bulb moments or any actions that you want to take forward that you want a bit of accountability on. It's just very much just that top slice we're going to look at today. So we're going to think about nurturing our well-being, but the first thing we always do in this space is pause, take a moment for yourself, just catch your breath. It's really, really important. I think we all need to do this as a regular habit of just taking a wee moment to segue from the day you've had and everything that's going on in your mind. You're probably still got all the apps on in your mind that need shutting down. And also just to give yourself permission. So by that, I mean, decide, think about something that you absolutely need to say yes to yourself on right here now. It could be anything. It can be just about being present, and that's all you've got in the bag. It can be about really saying yes to making sure you give yourself this hour. It could be making sure you completely just enjoy the time we've got. It might be that if you just had a tough day, that all you've got is just to show up. Whatever it is, just give yourself a wee minute to give yourself permission. Now, in the workbook, we've got a wee permission slip you can fill in. I find it helpful to write something down for myself because I'm more committed to things that I take out of my head and put on paper. If you've got your workbook, it's page 25, I think. Or you can write in a bit of paper, or you can just write a little mental note in your mind. So have a bit of a think about what that needs to be. As with all of these sessions, the format is that we take a moment to give ourselves permission for something. We remind ourselves that this is a safe space. It's a safe container, psychologically safe container to explore, to think, to share, to do whatever you need to do. So confidentiality is everything. I usually start the session by asking people to reconnect back to the mental fitness wheel that we looked at in that orientation session. Not everybody was present at that session, and I always remind people to go back and take a look at that first session, take a look at the wheel. I realize it doesn't have descriptors for each of the 9 areas. So again, work in progress. I will send something out to everyone just to describe each of those things in more detail if you need more detail. But I want you to connect with, and Kim will pop it up on the screen, just that wheel. We were at the 3rd section of the wheel, and that 3rd section of the wheel is about well-being. And I asked everyone to think about your rating from 1 to 5. 5's been really mastery, really nailing it. I've got skills or habits in place that really support my well-being, and 1 being feeling really stuck. This is just something that it's not happening. I don't know how to tackle it. And as you can see, there's descriptors for 2, accepting help. 3, taking control and starting to make change. Or 4, developing the ability. So some of my actions are effective, but I want to develop more. I'm learning to become competent. I want just to try and connect with where you would be at for well-being. And how I would describe well-being is having the ability to really put habits into practice for yourself that help you rest, reconnect with yourself, and reset the balance in your life so that you're getting the chance to boost your well-being whilst you also manage your performance at the same time. So just connect with that. The number you gave yourself, there's no need to share. I'm going to do a little bit of a knowledge information share with us, and then we're going to do a bit of silent coaching again, where I'll ask you to do an exercise. You won't be expected to share. It's a writing things down, but we might decide to bounce ideas off each other. It's completely fine to do either. And then we'll create a little bit of a space at the end to chat if we want to, and I'll send you away with a bit of a call to action. So coming back to you right here, right now, as usual, I've been doing my old kit bag thing. So my kit bag has been full and I've unpacked it, and I've been getting props and things out that to me really relate to this concept of well-being. I've been getting carried away because I kept thinking of more and more ideas and getting really excited, and then I had to stop myself. It's like, stop it right now, because I've got a table full of things here that I want to talk through. Challenges around mindfulness. Got my octopus, my well-being octopus. Got 5 steps to well-being. I've even got sugar. Remember to ask me about the sugar. It's important. So I unpacked my kit bag today because I was thinking about what could I share with you around nurturing your well-being. And so the 3 things we're going to think about are rest. So that's about understanding the sort of rest that you need and what that looks like. Reconnect. Well, that's about reconnecting with yourself and the things you love and the people that matter, but mostly about reconnecting with yourself. And thirdly is the rebalance, which is why I showed you the scales, that tip and balance, the B word. It's a wonderful word, but it's really, really quite hard to put into practice, getting that balance just right for yourself between work and play, between other people and yourself, and between getting things done and the task of taking care of yourself. So there's always balance to be had. So the definition, first of all, because we're talking about how to nurture well-being, but first of all, we have to establish what we mean by well-being. So the go-to thing is you go to a dictionary and you look for a definition, but we'll all have a definition of our own as to what we mean by well-being. The definition that I found that made most sense to me was, it wasn't about the presence of health or the absence of health itself. It was about a combination of things. It was about the state of being comfortable, healthy, and happy. So it could be any of those things. And I think that people can have well-being in lots of different ways. So the state of being comfortable, healthy, and happy. And I think when it comes to well-being, when it comes to everything, but when it comes to well-being, there's a pain and a paradise, isn't there? There's a pain, which is in the absence of us being able to nurture our well-being and attend to it, there's going to be obstacles or roadblocks we might face. And when we learn and discover how to nurture our well-being, there's a paradise, which is we're creating opportunities for ourselves and for other people. Because if we win, everybody wins. It's as simple as that. So the pain, when we're not taking care of our well-being, I can assure you that we're going to feel depleted. We're going to feel a bit worn out. We're going to be, people describe themselves to me as being almost at the effect of their life rather than in being in charge of life. So they feel like life's sort of happening to them and they can't keep up. It's just happening, they're reacting. You're a higher risk of burnout and a higher risk of developing physical health issues when you don't take care of the bigger picture. So the people that tend to be highest risk, I'll think of personality types. If you're a perfectionist, if you like things to be just done just so, and you'll really go to the far end to get things just right. If you're a caregiver, if your level of the level you operate in life is about serving others, if you have a lot of caregiving roles and you believe that serving others is the most important thing, or you have a lot of responsibilities for other people, it puts you at higher risk. And I would like to say to you that for me, this describes me: perfectionism, love high performance, high energy, caregiving, rescuer, love helping people, can put you at risk if it's not balanced with that ability to take care of you. In terms of the paradise, if you're taking care of your well-being instead, you're doing life, it's not doing you. You've got more opportunity to think about your well-being as an adventure, as something that you can nurture and play around with and discover more. you'll be curious about how you can take care of yourself and nurture it in different ways. And you'll be able to strengthen yourself physically, mentally, and emotionally. It's as simple as that. And that, my friends, is available to all of us. It's about how do we do it? So I guess what I'm saying is that we all have the potential to have well-being, but it doesn't just happen. So sometimes we can look at other people and say, well, look at them, they're really good at that. I wish I was like that. I wish I was good at taking care of myself. I wish I made time for, it could be anything, the gym, my friends, me. But actually, it doesn't just happen. Taking care of yourself is something that it's positive habits that we actually create through our own choices and through our own actions. So it's completely available to all of us. And it puts you at the helm of the ship. It puts you in charge of yourself. And I would describe it as like health wealth. So your potential for well-being, it accumulates like money in the bank. If you think about it, every time you make an investment in you, you're contributing to your health. It's the biggest investment that you and I can make. And if we create the right habits, if we commit to them, if we're boundaried about how important they are, and we say yes to ourselves and follow through, not just professing all the things we're going to do for ourselves to take care, but putting them into action, then we'll be wealthy. We'll have our health wealth. And what we know, I guess, is that well-being is the cornerstone for a happy life. So happiness and health are completely connected. And I mentioned that a friend of mine, he always says to me, you know, we're here for a good time, not for a long time. And I love that quote, but actually I want to be here for a good time and for a long time. I want it all. And I want it for you too. So we have to harness the commitment. We have to uncover more about what it looks like, and when we have to commit to put it into practice. And I have a coaching friend, and she always says to me, you know, we talk about this, are you glass half full? Are you glass half empty? And she always says to me, you can't pour from an empty jug. And it's true. It's sort of like, if there's nothing in it, there's nothing to give, you know, to yourself or others. So, you know, there's loads of metaphors and things that we can use to describe how we might feel when we're nurtured and how we might feel when we're depleted. But I guess the question is, how are you feeling at the moment? Are you feeling half full? Are you feeling half empty? Are you completely empty? Where are we feeling at the minute? So just take time, take a wee moment just to think about where you are in that respect right now. And a wee personal share is, when I look at my mental fitness wheel, our mental fitness wheels will change depending upon whether we look at home life context, whether we look at our work context. It could be looked at in different ways. Also, at different points in life, we'll rate ourselves differently. But I can tell you this is a personal share. This area, this aspect of mental fitness is my kryptonite. It's the area where I struggle persistently. My skills are lower than they need to be. So I'm often reminding myself that it's my biggest challenge, but it's also my biggest opportunity, isn't it? It's the place where I can put the work in and really take care of myself. And at the minute, I would say I'm segueing between a 2 and a 3, because you know, I've moved house recently, various things have happened in life. Life happens to us, doesn't it? And so we can't put life on hold to take care of ourselves. We've got to manage to juggle all the plates that are spinning whilst we do this. And there's a risk that we can say, oh, when I retire, when it's summer, when I go on holiday, when I do this, I'll do all the things I need to do to take care of me. But what we actually really need to do is we need to discover the small, simple, but really significant practice skills we can take that will work for us. So there's no prescription that I can give each and every single one of you that will be right for everyone. Our job's to work out what's right for us and put it into practice and pull it in to those everyday things that we do. pull it into everyday life. And that, my friends, is our challenge. So my mental fitness goal this month is radical self-care. So does anybody want to say more about where you feel you are at the moment on your mental fitness wheel? Does anybody feel like, oh, I really feel strongly that I'm here and it's a good place to be? Or likewise, do you feel like you're maybe lower than you want to be? Where would you say you're at? Abby?
Yeah, for me, like having well-being is such an important part of my vision of my best life. Like, I imagine doing yoga in the mornings, I imagine doing all of these amazing things. And I think the challenge for me in this chapter is, I'm still working full time and I'm trying to build a business. And so that's 6 days a week. And so then I have one day at the end of that where it's okay, those are the domestics, those are seeing friends, and those are self-care. And I'm an introvert. So it's like I need my downtime. So for me, this is a chapter, and I'm sure this is kind of what you were saying about moving, maybe if you have young kids or something. For me, this is a chapter that's really challenging me to have my self-care. So I would say I'm at about a 3, but I would love just it's that vision of one day I will have this amazing self-care. But yeah, trying to introduce that more in the small little moments, that's really kind of sticking with me from what you said.
Yeah, that's really, really important. I'm glad that you're aware and you know how important it is. And I think being able to envisage what it'll look like matters too, because otherwise self-care is just a word, isn't it? Or 2 words that mean, like, what does it mean? And it might mean something completely different to everyone. Some people will refer to sort of lovely bubble baths and downtime and sort of feeling pampered. Get like me in my muddy boots. I need rosy cheeks and muddy feet. I'm at my best, when I'm sitting by a campfire. That's ultimate self-care. Or out in the wilderness somewhere. And there's no right or wrong. It's just honing down what it actually means to you. So yeah, thank you for sharing, Phil. What would you like to?
You had to mention bubble baths, didn't you?
Was that yours, Phil?
I got outvoted, and the bath went in, a bigger shower went in. I've still got loads of bubble baths, but I haven't got a bath to have a soak, and that's one of life's pleasures for me. Sitting with maybe a couple of cold bottles of beer or a glass of wine. Great stuff. But a bit like Abby, I'm probably generally at the moment a 3. Mm-hmm. I look at the wheel and I know that I can get to a 4. Whether I could sustain a 5, I don't know. I think there are so many factors, external factors, which could really impact that. I don't know. I don't feel as if I could get to a 5 permanently. And I'm not trying to be negative or pessimistic. I think I would struggle to always attain that utopian 5, but I think it's something nice to aim for, even if I was to achieve it for a few weeks or in a few days. It's a nice thing to target, but I don't know. I feel a bit daunted that maybe I'd be a bit false to myself if I felt that I could attain a 5 and always say that I was a 5. That's just my own personal view.
Lovely, really lovely share. And I wholeheartedly agree that aspiring to be something all the time is just, it's a great thing to, it's a best hope, isn't it? But as you say, we're doing life and, it's not always possible. Sometimes other things take a bit priority. And I think our goal, if you reach 5, the goal's try and stay at 5. And if you're 4, it's like, great, good work. What's working? Keep doing it more. And if you're 3, it's, what do you want to do? What one small tweak can you make to your current habits to make it possible? So I think wherever we're at is about sustaining it and having more and just doing our best. It's just doing our best. So yeah, thank you for sharing. And I've connect with you on the bubble bath thing. It's it's like as soon as you've not got a bath, you're like, I want a bath. You need to book into a lovely hotel and make sure you get some nice bubble bath time. So thank you. I'm going to move on a little bit, but just want to check in. Does anybody else want to say anything at this point? Is it all right to do that, to move forward? So I just want to say something about rest, because Phil, you mentioned sleep at the beginning. You mentioned something about rest, and this always kind of gets me thinking about my eye mask. And this is my biggest challenge is getting enough sleep. When you're a hyperactive person and you're always on the go, downtime and sleep is tricky. But actually, it's a really important thing, isn't it? Sleep. So if we're thinking about rest, reconnect, and rebalance. And when I think about rest, I always think about my eye mask, sleep. And I used to always think that, my motto used to be, I'll sleep when I'm dead. I've got things to do. Life's happening now. And then I read a book called Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. And then I realized that actually sleep is your superpower. So sleep's a really, really important thing. And in this book, there's a lot of detail about the different ways in which sleep replenishes us cognitively, physically, mentally, socially. And there's lots of stats and interesting data around how sleep influences us, and stats around, when clocks change, how it affects people's habits, behaviors, road accidents, heart attacks, all sorts of things. But what I want to say to you is I've always connected rest with sleep, and I've changed my thinking on that recently, because, well, a question for you: have you ever tried to fix exhaustion with sleep, but then just found yourself still feeling tired? I don't know if you've connected with that at any point, where you've slept, but actually you're tired still. And I discovered a really interesting article and also a TED talk about types of rest, and it's called 7 Types of Rest. And apparently there are 7 types of rest that we need to feel recharged. So this article goes into, we need physical rest, we need mental rest, we need creative rest, emotional, sensory. I think that's only 6. What it reminded me was that there's different types of rest that we actually need. And in order to get the rest that our body needs or our mind needs, we need to actually get clear on in which way we're depleted. So I'm going to put the article in the Facebook group for people to read. You might have seen it in there already, Phil, because in our really overstimulating world, if you're trying to rest, and actually you've been around people in an office all day, and actually maybe you need social rest, but you rest by meeting up with and spending time around lots of people, you're going to remain exhausted. And likewise, if you need sensory rest, then you don't want to go into an environment where there's lots of sounds and lights and things, incoming, overstimulating kind of input coming at you. So I would just say, if you want to, I would like you to think a bit about more about rest, and to uncover a wee bit more about the sort of rest you might be missing, and make sure, and in this article, it kind of gives examples of ways in which you can rest yourself depending upon in which way you're depleted. So go back to that. None of this is rocket science, but yet it's really, really valuable to just take a little bit of a closer look. So we need rest. Like I say, I'll pop it into the Facebook group, because what I would like you to do is to have a little bit of a read of that and think about in which way, what small habit can you create, what small change can you make to make sure that rest is possible and that we're all feeling a bit more rested. So I'm going to talk quickly about reconnecting. So reconnecting can mean a lot of things. So reconnecting with yourself, obviously, reconnecting with doing things you love, reconnecting with the people that matter most. So, we can be very busy in our lives, but actually we do need sometimes to sort of stop that hamster wheel from running and actually just reconnect, take a pause and check out what's really, really important. Now, I've been doing some work recently with a group of children, and I was asking them to think about the habit of stopping regularly and reconnecting with themselves so they could check in with their emotional well-being. And we were just using these little guys here, these little emotion, I think they're called emotional octopus, where you can decide which face that you want to have depending on how you're feeling. So that's like a super simple thing, isn't it, to do? But what I was saying to them was, by picking up this little tool, it's just a reminder to sort of think, how am I feeling? How am I doing? And they loved it. They loved it as a way to really, really stop and think and check in, which I think is something that we should be doing, but are we doing is the question. So a friend of mine, true story, a friend of mine recently had a conversation with me, and she said to me, you know what, you are really, really lucky. You have got so many amazing people. Like, you've got inspiring people in your life, generous people, creative, interesting people in your life. You should connect with them more. And I agreed with her, because it got me thinking about all the wonderful people that I know. And she said, no, you're missing the point. She said, you're one of them. You're one of them. So when are you going to make some time to reconnect with you? And it made me realize that we can be busy connecting up with people and thinking that that's what's worthwhile to do. Connecting with people, connecting with activities, and being action biased, being doers. But actually, it's a reminder that the most important thing we can do is just make space and time to reconnect with ourselves. And it's vital that we do that to have a life well lived, because if we don't stop and just check in with ourselves, and to make time, and to make it almost like a practice thing that we do, where we have time for ourselves regularly, ideally daily, then we're going to miss out on that space and time just to really be mindful in our own lives, to be able just to know how we're thinking and feeling, and how it's affecting our behavior, how it's affecting our health, our happiness, our relationships. So yeah, connecting with ourselves is something that we all need to do. How do you feel you are at that at the moment? Is this something that you find, is it easy to do? Is it something that you make a habit of? Yeah, so it's something for you to think about just now while we're in this conversation. And how does it look? So do you make time to be alone? Is it about, how do you reconnect? Do you go to a quiet space? Do you leave the office at lunchtime to be on your own? Do you take walks in the wilderness? I did some coaching with a guy that he told me that he booked an appointment with himself every few days, and it didn't matter what people thought he was doing. He was protecting time. So I would say, are you making time to be alone and just to check in with yourself? Do you have protected time where you take care of yourself? And do you get into other spaces? Do you make time to just find the environments that boost you and nourish you, wherever that might be, wherever it might be? So as an outdoor person, I read a lot of articles about the power of being outdoors. So I know for a fact that there's psychological benefits of being in the outdoors in terms of endorphins and how we create vitamin D within our bodies. But is it something that you would say you make time to do? Do you guys make time to be alone? Do you protect time for yourself? Do you reconnect with, the right sort of environments? Feel free just to pop something in the chat. Is this a yes or a thumbs up or a thumbs down for you? And of course, for anybody who's listening to the replay, same question. I guess this is like checking your fuel tank, isn't it? Like you stop the car and check to see if your fuel tank's okay. Are you doing this for yourself? So Joe's giving that a thumbs up. That's good. I'm going to say this is something I'm getting better at, but I still need to remember. More time needed. Thank you, Paul. Yeah. It's great. I love like the group chat is like the kitchen at a party. It's where all the good stuff happens. So we've got need more from Paul. Like to take myself to a cafe every Sunday, but I'd like more time at home painting. Yeah, with a glass of wine. That sounds lovely. And kids, of course. Yeah, the joys of kids. It's like it becomes your biggest challenge, doesn't it? When you've got wee ones, is like, me, help, where am I? Where do I fit in all this picture? Absolutely. So thank you. And because the question really is, if you find habits if you're starting to create those habits for yourself, what difference does it make to how you feel? So Phil's talking about the change now that like when you were working, you have more quality time, and you can have lots of time in your hands, but actually about the using it wisely for yourself can be different. I've spent time over the years working with people that have an absence of meaningful occupation. So like they're not working or studying, but sometimes having lots of time in your hands can be a barrier as well, because it can actually become more difficult to prioritize your time and decide how to use it to get the best out of it. So, you know, not having enough time or having too much time can equally create barriers, which is interesting in itself, isn't it? Okay, so the third part of this is the rebalance part. It's the bit about balancing the scales. You know, I love these little scales. I have these on my desk and I use them as a prompt to myself to invite me to check in, and I move them around because sometimes I'm like, whoa, okay, right, this is, so you can see what happens, right? You tip it one way and it's like collapse, and it's like how do you move? I'm constantly trying to shift back the weight of things back and forward, and of course ideally a bit like reaching that 5, we want to be here, but actually sometimes it's like, whoa, there's too much work, or sometimes there's like there's lots of rest time, but I'm not being productive enough in a way that's like nourishing me as well. So the balance is constantly being challenged here. My scales are a bit of a reminder to me to play around. And if I lift something off because the scales are tipping one way, then I think, well, if I'm shifting something or taking something off, what is it in my actual life? What am I taking out of the equation here? And what do I need to do to make that possible? Constant challenge and opportunity for us. Okay. Yeah, so interestingly, someone asked me a question recently, and they said, so do you do life or does life do you? And I was a bit confused by that question initially, but I realized that what they were talking about, overworking and that risk of burnout. So sometimes what happens is we're action biased, and we live in a culture where we're told that it's like good to be busy, and it's praised. How busy are you? And, you know, sometimes we can get into this bragging thing about how much I got done in a day or how many plates I'm spinning. And it's more sort of thought to be more worthy of a pat on the back than to actually be able to say, I've got boundaries in my life. So no, I don't work too hard. I get my job done the best I can. And then I take care of me and I have fun. Because there's this desire to maximize our productivity and boost our performance and do our best. And so usually to do that, we keep working. But actually, if you tip it the other way, positive habits that energize our bodies and minds also boost our performance and maximize our productivity. And whilst it seems counterintuitive, I knew that today I had a pile of things to do that needed done, but I knew if I took half an hour out to go run on the beach, I'd come back and get more done. And sure enough, I came back refreshed. My mindset felt, I was focused on solutions. I could see things more clearly. I had a better day, but I needed to take that time out to nourish myself to do that. So I'll tell you something really quickly. About a year and a half ago, I was asked to do a podcast for a law firm, and they asked me to talk about burnout. And so I was delighted. So I spent time drawing on my experience of my mental health work and my knowledge as a coach, and I created some content ready for this podcast. And towards the end of the podcast, as I was talking about it, I realized I was talking about myself, because I identified with most of the descriptors for burnout. And it was a really, really big moment for me. It was a big moment in which I realized I needed to make some big changes in my life to redress the balance. And so it's a reminder to us all that whilst we can all end up in that space, it is possible to change what you do in order to take control back and rebalance things for yourself. So I think it's probably time for me to stop speaking and to pause And just to invite anybody in at this point, I've got an exercise, but if there's anybody wants to maybe comment, maybe they've said something that struck a chord and you wanted to say something, this is absolutely the perfect time to unmute and say. And if not, we can get on with a wee exercise to get you to think a little bit more about how to nourish yourself and what are the activities in your life that might nourish or deplete you. Are we good to go? Should we carry on? Good. Okay. If you have your workbook or a worksheet, that's great. And if you don't, that's okay too. So I'm just going to have a little bit of a reference. Page 26. And I think Kim's going to pop on the screen what the task is so you can see what the worksheet looks like. If you don't have it, all you need is pen and paper and you'd be able to do this activity. So I've got a wee quote: top up, relax, make time to refuel and re-energize so you can shine. And it's true. If we take care of ourselves, we can shine and we can show our best and be our best. So the question to you really is this: do the activities that you do regularly help you take care of yourself? So there's a table below, and what I would like you to do is there's 2 columns, and all I want you to do for now is to write down 10 to 12 things that you kind of do most days. You know, it could be like walking the dog, it could be just eating well, watching TV, working out, anything that you do. It doesn't really matter what it is, it's just the regular activities that kind of might be either part of every day or might be part really frequent in your week. I'll put myself on pause and I'll give you a few minutes just to focus in on just writing 10 to 12 things down, just whatever comes to your mind, don't overthink it. And welcome, Rose, it's lovely to have you here. We're just doing a bit of an exercise here, so it's absolutely wonderful that you're with us. I'm asking everyone to have a pen and paper. We're doing a wee exercise that's about thinking about whether the activities that you do on a daily basis are nourishing or depleting. And all I've asked people to do is write down 10 to 12 things that you do regularly that are part of your typical day or a typical week. They're just part of life for you. And I'll give you a couple of minutes and then I'll give you the second part of the task. I'll just go and mute. Any questions, feel free to unmute yourself and ask me. Does anybody need more time?
I haven't got 10 yet. But you can do the next bit anyway.
Anybody else need more time? So just while you're thinking about those things, I would like you to we're going to ask you what of those tasks nourish you and which of those tasks deplete you. So by doing this, it might be something that's like a need to do or is part of something that you do intentionally to top you up. It might deplete you. It might be like a habit you have that just, you keep doing it, but it gets in the way. It could be it might be drinking. It might be avoiding the workouts. It might be biting your nails. Those things that you do that you just kind of like, you might need to do them. It might be part of what you need to do in life, but it's certainly those things that you think that takes something away. It doesn't top my battery up. So I'll give you another 2 minutes just to have a little bit of a think. And in the column next to the activity, there's a skinny column where you can just put an N for nurture, nourish, D for deplete. Is everybody okay? I'm going to ask you one more thing. Well, I'm curious. So I'm wondering, do you have more N's or more D's? What are you finding? Which is the thing that's showing up most?
I've got 10 on my list, and I think there's a couple of NDs, but there's one more N than a D, so more nourishing than deplete.
Okay, so you're tipping the balance slightly in your favor.
Well, I might be scoring wrong, but yeah.
No. I mean, it's subjective, so it's how it feels to you. Now, interestingly, some are N and D, aren't they? Because it's contextual. So sometimes things that can, in the right conditions or at the right time, in the right context, in the right way, can be really nourishing, and others can be depleting. Is that what you found, Paul? Did you find that somewhere could be either or?
Absolutely. One of my NDs was getting up and giving the kids breakfast.
Yeah.
Because there's times when it's brilliant and we have a funny laugh and it's a great start to the day. And there's other days where you're not looking forward to the day because you know what it entails and you can't be bothered.
Yeah.
You don't want to have that discussion with the kids. Just eat fucking breakfast.
Yeah.
I need to go.
I understand. Yeah, there've been times when I've thought, how would it be if I said out loud to the children, which part of I've got nothing left to offer, don't you understand? And then realised that was just something to keep in my head. Yeah, it's hard, isn't it? And on one hand, you get that lovely feeling of like, oh, I spent quality time with my kids and lovely. On the other hand, just, it can change, it can take something away before you've had a chance to top yourself up and give yourself something you need. It's a good one. My example is always exercise related, and it's that thing that exercise is very much something that helps me nurture my well-being. But if I put too much pressure on myself, if I haven't got enough resources on me that day, and I'm still pushing and put myself under pressure to do something when I just need to give myself permission to relax, rest, then it can go against me. So there's times when it can go for me and times when it can go against me. Thank you for sharing. So I'm keeping an eye on time because I want to make sure we get finished so you can all have a lovely, nourishing evening. But what I would like you to do next is I want you to take that information now. This is a quick whistle stop tour, so I'm hoping that this might encourage you to do a little bit more thinking around the activities you do and whether they're nourishing and depleting. Because what I would like you to do is just take a little bit of time just now to think from what you've written so far. I would like you to create a do more list and make sure there's at least one thing that you write down. So this is part of this exercise. If you use the workbook, it'll be page 28 for this part, but it's a case of this is what you need more of in your life. It's something on that list that's like, it's good for me, it needs to show up more. Something that will, you know, it might be that you love learning new things and it's not happening enough, or you want, you know, adventures on your list, but it's not happening just now. Something that's on your list that you really want, write it down next to I want more of. This is your the more list. I'm going to give you a moment to do that. Hopefully you've managed to come up with one thing. And if you haven't, but you're thinking about it and you're digging deep on it, that's good. I'd like you to go keep thinking a bit more about this more. And we don't need a long list. It could just be that there's one valuable thing. The next list is the do less list. There might be something that you do that you just need. I'll tell you what, we'll combine it. We'll say do it less or stop. Something that you either, it might be an old habit that doesn't serve you well, holds you back. You put the time and effort in, but you don't get a lot of gain. It could be somebody you spend time with, you don't get a lot of value from, or they deplete you. It could be something that, you know, it takes away. Something you want to either do less or stop. Because the stop part is literally something that it's like, it's got to go. It's not adding value. It takes your resources with no gain back. So do less or stop. I'm going to put them together for the purpose of this exercise and give you a wee minute to think of something that's got to go or got to be less. So I'm going to ask you a question. And if you're still writing or still thinking about this, that's okay. Kim, I wonder if we can take the exercise off now and I'll be able to see everybody's lovely faces again. That's great. Really simple question. What's been most helpful so far?
You mean from today's session? I keep looking back at the 7 types of rest, which didn't even think there was that kind of many. That was, 7's not a big number, but it's the sheer volume of rest types, and they actually really resonate. So I'll keep looking at that.
Great, really great.
Sites with explanations about more on it. It's really useful.
I'll make sure it's already in the Facebook. I'll make sure just like tag everybody into that article, because it's really great. It was a big light bulb moment for me as well, Paul. Thank you. Thanks for sharing. And Jo?
I think the piece around the what nourishes, what depletes you, I actually didn't have anything that depleted on its own. It was an either or, nourish or a deplete. But I think also it's a two-way thing, because some of the what I'd like to do more of depends on other people as well, whether they want to do more too. So it's not all down to me. And then when they don't want to do more, then that's depleting.
Yeah, and putting out there, having the courage to put out there what you want, knowing that it might not be available to you is a big deal, isn't it? It takes a lot of courage to do that. Yeah. And it's a case of then? What does it mean? Do you do it anyway? Do you do it anyway? Do you do it with other people? Do you save it and wait? And that's a whole topic in itself, isn't it? That we could give her. Yeah. And Phil?
So Jo, I think that's a great point. You can have a list of things that you want to do less or you want to stop, but some of them are, well, you've got to demonstrate your own ability to negotiate to get what you want, because if it involves other people, sometimes their targets or aspirations are nowhere near what yours are. And I can think of several non-work related ones that would definitely be valid. Polly, I was going to ask on the 7 types of sleep. Is there anything on power napping and the benefits of that or not?
Yes, there is. I'm going to send you the link. I can't remember the detail, but it does talk about power napping, and in itself, I think it's been pretty well researched. And nana napping, power napping, call it what you like, but they say it's a really powerful way to rest. And if you do some research on how we used to sleep, it's a very interesting kind of like take on when we had to forage and hunt and survive. Our sleep looked very, very differently once. And this idea that we need to go to sleep in one chunk and have 7 hours sleep is very much like part of the world we live in today. It's not how we used to operate. So it's really, really interesting to take a bit of a look at how we do that.
Well, living just outside Ashington, I'm obviously familiar with the concept of cave dwelling. So I totally get the need to sort of do hunting and gathering. But I mean, yesterday I went to the gym for 2 hours, got back home at 11 o'clock, fell asleep on the bed at 11:15, woke up at 1 o'clock. A bit more than a power nap, but I must have needed it. But
yeah, did you feel sort of nourished after it? Did you feel rested?
I was a bit horrified when I saw what time it was, but I'll be honest, the rest of the day was fantastic. I felt really, really energized, and I was able to do all the things that I didn't think I would have time to do. But yeah, I had a little bit more energy than I thought.
That's amazing. That's really good. So bear that in mind. It might be that that's what works for you and it's okay. And it might not
recommend that to everyone who's holding down a 9-to-5 job. I don't think bosses would be that keen on having best part of 2 hours kit. But I mean, I sometimes used to like doing that when I was getting paid for it as well, which is one of the benefits of working from home.
Much more fun.
Oh, it is.
Tell you what, I'll write you all a poly prescription, and you can bring that to work. And Lisa, I always want to call you Rose World because it's your name on the thing. So
I know, and I don't know how to change it, Polly, else I would. I just wanted to sort of put my sort of 2 penneth in, I suppose. But one of the things I struggle with as a person is I'm always trying to find some time for myself, because I've got a husband that's very unwell at the moment. I've got 2 children. One of them is quite tricky to manage. So I've got all these kind of complexities at home. And I realize on mine that everything is striving towards, whether it's nourishing or depleting, me trying to segue out some time away from everybody so that I can breathe. So that's really interesting for me today, because I can realize now that, where it is nourishing, I've probably not thought about it, within that context. That's been really helpful for me. And I put things down like getting my nails done, which probably won't mean anything to anybody else, but it gives me a bit of time away from it. And it's like a couple of hours where I can just focus on myself for a little bit. And that's really important to me. And I wouldn't have thought about it like that before. And in the depleting, I put things like just managing the school run in the morning, because I find it so stressful, that when I drive back, I feel like I've aged about 80 years before 8 o'clock in the morning.
And, you know, it's just knowing that you're going to feel like that and putting strategies in place so that I can mitigate for that a bit more successfully now that I've kind of see it through that viewpoint. Whereas before it just kind of happens to me and I let it happen. Does that make sense, Polly?
Absolutely makes sense completely. And I think one of the key things that you reminded me is that how we nourish ourselves, there isn't a right or wrong. It's just got to feel good. It'll change how we think or how we feel or how we behave, and that's enough. And we would all have completely different things on our list, and it's not relevant. So that's the key thing to really remember. Absolutely. Thank you for that. We lost Rose? Oh, she's still there. You moved on my screen and I thought I'd lost you. And also there's those things we have to do that are about our responsibilities for other people. And it's about, you know, booking an appointment with yourself and making, how do we make that part of what we do? And it's that thing we know, you know, we've got two hands. One's definitely for other people, but let's keep one back. Let's have one back for ourselves and make sure that we remember that if we win, everybody wins. And that's the fact. And sometimes I think it can be valuable to double up what you do. You know, like, can you double up the school run with like time in the car to have a lovely podcast once they're all out the car, to listen to something, a storybook, or to put your favorite music on, or, you know, I'm getting really good at working out how to double up tasks to kind of like get more wins for myself. It's almost like a zero hours win if you can double up that time that you're losing on other stuff to just give yourself something nourishing that you need back. Thank you for sharing that, Lisa. Who else would like to say something about what they're going to do or what they've learned? Is there any other add-ons at this point? Are we done? Have you had enough? I'm going to wrap it up. I'm going to put post in the Facebook group about with the article Types of Rest. If anyone wants to share just kind of any light bulb moments, anything you've learned, if there's something that you're going to commit to now because of the conversation in this coaching session, you want some accountability and you want to put it there for us to support and encourage you and cheer you on, we'll do that. To wrap things up, right, I've got some asks of you. You can choose. So we know that now is the right time. We're not waiting for summer, for holidays, for retirement. Now is the right time to nourish ourselves and nurture our well-being. It has to happen now because we want to be here for a good time and for a long time. So I'm asking you to do something now that your future self will thank you for. I want you to go away and know that you can book an appointment with yourself. It might be that you just have a no guilt, no blame permission slip. Go have a walk in the woods, go lie in the bath, or, you know, take the walk, lock the door. We almost need a do not disturb sign, closed. You know how shops have that closed sign. For 30 minutes, book some time for yourself in the next week. I would say twice or 3 times, but even if you can do one, that would be really great. 30 minutes just for you. What's the worst thing that could happen? And I'm also going to ask you to commit to yourself one thing that you love doing. One thing, just one little thing for you. And as you go away today, I want you to ask yourself, what am I going to pack in my kit bag? What am I going to pack in my kit bag to help me nurture my well-being? What one thing? It might be a reminder. I've got my sand from the beach to remind me that, and this is where I need to be more. You know, it might be that, you know, you've got a little something that you're like, yeah, I just need to check in. Where am I at? Or maybe you just know you need some calm and some mindfulness, something. What is it going to be? So that's for you to go away. If you want to share it with me, with the group, on Facebook, anywhere, we'll hold you accountable. We'll help you, we'll support you. But once this call's finished, you can go into the Facebook group and collect your Polly prescription to help you keep focused on nurturing your well-being. Next week, we're going to think about mindset. I love mindset. We're going to really focus again on, you know, how we're going to strengthen this muscle of our mind so we can develop a positive view of the world around us and strengthen a positive mental attitude. So you know where I am. If anybody needs anything, if anything's come up for you that you just want to explore a bit more, I'm here. You know where to find me, you know how to contact me. And just to say a big thank you to you all for being with us and making this time for yourself. Have a lovely rest of night, everybody, and take care.